David asked me to accompany him to a crucial dinner, meeting with a prospective Japanese business associate. I responded with a smile, nodded in agreement, and flawlessly assumed the role of the ornamental spouse. What he was unaware of was that I comprehended every word spoken in Japanese, and upon overhearing what he said about me to that client, everything was altered irreversibly. But first, let me begin from the start. My name is Sarah, and for 12 years I believed I had a solid marriage. Not flawless, but sufficiently good. David, my husband, held a senior management position at a tech company in the Bay Area. I worked as a marketing coordinator for a smaller firm, nothing glamorous, but fulfilling enough. We resided in a pleasant townhouse in Mountain View, enjoyed annual vacations, and outwardly, it might have seemed like we had everything under control. Yet somewhere along the line, things shifted. I couldn't quite nail down when exactly it began. Perhaps it was when David received his last promotion 3 years prior. Or maybe it was so gradual that I only realized it after I was already living a marriage different from the one I had imagined. David grew increasingly busy, more self-important, or at least that's how he portrayed it. Late nights at work, frequent conference trips, and once home, he was either glued to his phone or too exhausted for conversation. Our talks became functional. Did you pick up my dry cleaning? Don't forget dinner with the Johnsons on Saturday. Can you arrange the lawn service? I have no time. I convinced myself this was normal. This was what happens after 10 years of marriage. The spark fades, routines set in, and you just make it work. I suppressed the loneliness that crept up during the quiet nights when he was shut away in his home office, and I sat alone, watching television programs I hardly cared about. About 18 months ago, something I stumbled on changed my path. One sleepless night, while scrolling on my phone, an ad appeared offering a free trial of a language learning app, Japanese. I had taken a semester of Japanese back in college, back when I was a different person with different aspirations. I loved that language, the intricacy, the grace, the way it offered a completely different worldview. But then I met David, married, started working, and that dream was tucked away in the drawer marked impractical youthful interests. That night, lying beside David as he snored, I downloaded the app just out of curiosity, to check if anything stuck. I recalled more than I'd expected. The hiragana was easier to remember than the katakana. Within a few weeks, I was hooked. Every evening, while David worked late or watched financial news, I sat at the kitchen table with earbuds in, progressing through lessons. I subscribed to learner podcasts, watched Japanese dramas with subtitles, then eventually without them. I kept it from David, not because I was hiding it exactly, but because I'd learned not to share things he would belittle. 3 years earlier, when I mentioned wanting to take a photography class, he laughed, not cruelly, but in a way that made me feel small. Sarah, you snap pictures with your iPhone like everyone else. You don't need a class. Besides, when would you even find the time? After that, I learned to keep my interests to myself. It was simpler than defending them. So Japanese became my secret realm, something I excelled at, truly excelled at. I practiced daily, sometimes 2 or 3 hours at a stretch. I video chatted with tutors on Itaki, joined online study groups, even began reading simple novels. A year later, I could fluently comprehend conversational Japanese, not perfectly, but well enough to follow films, understand podcasts, and hold decent conversations with tutors. It felt like reclaiming a buried part of myself. Every new vocabulary word, every grammar rule I mastered was proof that I could still grow, that I was more than just David's wife. Then, one evening in late September, David arrived home earlier than usual, looking unusually excited and energized, a side I hadn't seen in months. "Sarah, fantastic news," he said, loosening his tie as he entered the kitchen where I was chopping vegetables. "We're close to sealing a deal. with a Japanese tech company. This could be Hugh. The CEO is coming next week, and I'm taking him to dinner at Hackery. You'll need to come. I looked up. Me to a business dinner. Yeah. Tanaka-san specifically asked if you were married. It's Japanese business culture. They prefer to know you're stable, family-oriented. Good optics. He opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. You just need to look nice, smile, be charming. You know, the usual. The way he said the usual irked me, but I pushed it away. Sure, of course. When? Next Thursday, 7 p.m. Wear the navy dress, the one with sleeves. Conservative but elegant. And Sarah, he turned to look at me directly for the first time. Tanaka doesn't speak much English. I'll do most of the talking in Japanese. You'll probably be bored, but just smile through it, okay? My heart skipped. You speak Japanese. Picked it up working with our Tokyo office over the years. Pretty fluent now. His voice held pride. It's one reason they're considering me for VP. Not many executives here negotiate in Japanese. He didn't ask if I spoke it, didn't consider if I had any interest or skill. Why would he? In his mind, I was the wife who would simply smile and look pretty while the important men talked. I turned back to cutting vegetables, hands moving on autopilot. That sounds wonderful, honey. I'll be there. After he left, I stood at the counter, mind racing. An opportunity had fallen into my lap, an opening to understand a conversation David thought was private, to hear how he truly spoke, how he presented himself, how he described our life when he assumed I couldn't understand. Part of me felt guilty for even considering this, but a larger part, the part that felt invisible in our marriage, needed to know. The week dragged by. I spent every spare moment refreshing business Japanese vocabulary, practicing polite phrases, making sure I could follow professional discussions. I didn't know what I expected to find, perhaps nothing important. Maybe I was overthinking, imagining problems that weren't there. Thursday arrived. Wearing the requested navy dress with modest heels and simple jewelry, I glanced in the mirror and saw exactly what David wanted. A presentable wife who wouldn't embarrass him in front of clients. The restaurant was in San Francisco, modern, upscale, the kind with months-long wait lists. David had used the company account to secure our table. We arrived 15 minutes early. David checked his reflection in his phone's camera, adjusted his already perfect tie. Remember, he said as we entered, just be pleasant. Don't join the business talk. If Tanaka-san speaks English to you, keep answers brief. We need him focused on the partnership, not distracted by small talk. I nodded, swallowing a bitter taste. Tanaka-san was already seated, a man in his mid-50s, wearing silver-rimmed glasses and a perfectly tailored suit. David bowed slightly. I mimicked him. They exchanged formal Japanese greetings. I smiled, appearing appropriately lost, and took the chair David pulled out. The conversation started in English, light pleasantries. Tanaka complimented the restaurant choice, mentioned his hotel, asked if this was our first time hosting international partners. His English was quite good, better than David suggested, just accented. As menus arrived, they naturally switched to Japanese. I had to admit, David's fluency was impressive, smooth, confident, clearly at ease. They discussed business forecasts, market expansion plans, technical specs I only partially grasped. I stayed silent, sipping water, smiling occasionally when they glanced at me, playing my part. Then Tanaka shifted slightly toward me, asked something in Japanese I caught, a polite inquiry about my work. Before I could pretend not to understand, David answered for me. In Japanese, he said, "Oh, Sarah works in marketing, but it's a small company, nothing serious, more of a hobby to keep her occupied. She mainly takes care of our home." I kept a neutral expression, but inside something twisted. A hobby? I'd worked in marketing for 15 years, managed successful campaigns, built client relationships, and yet he dismissed my career as a pastime. Tanaka nodded politely, didn't press further. The dinner went on. Multiple courses arrived, each beautifully plated. I ate slowly, stayed quiet, and listened. Really listened. David was different in Japanese, more assertive, more boastful. He exaggerated his role in projects, claimed credit for team efforts, portrayed himself as more central to the company's success than was true. It wasn't outrageous, but it was noticeable. The man named David, who spoke Japanese, seemed like a somewhat exaggerated iteration of the David I had once known. The topic soon turned to work-life balance, with Tanaka-san emphasizing how crucial family support is in careers that demand a lot. David laughed, a sound that twisted my insides painfully. Then, in Japanese, he said casually and dismissively, "To be honest, my wife doesn't really get the business world. She's perfectly happy with her simple life. I'm the one who makes all the important calls, manages the finances, plans the career moves. She's mostly for show, keeping the house in order, looking the part at events like this. It suits me fine because I don't have to deal with a wife who asks for too much attention or has ambitions that get in the way." I gripped my water glass so tightly I feared it might break. Tanaka-san responded with an ambiguous noise. I watched his expression, noticing a brief flicker, maybe discomfort, but he did confront David. Instead, he shifted the talk slightly, inquiring about David's long-term ambitions. "The VP role is basically mine," David continued in Japanese. "After that, I'm aiming for the C-suite within 5 years. I've been carefully positioning myself, cultivating the right connections. My wife isn't aware yet, but I've been shifting some assets around, setting up offshore accounts. Just smart financial planning. If my job calls for relocating or major changes, I need the freedom to act fast without being bogged down by joint accounts or needing her approval for everything." My blood turned icy. Offshore accounts. Moving money without telling me. I kept smiling evenly as my husband casually laid out financial moves that sounded like preparations for a future excluding me, or at least cutting me off from our shared funds. Yet he wasn't finished. Tanaka-san asked about the pressures of David's role and if he had ways to cope. David's laugh was harsh. "I have my outlets. There's someone at work, Jennifer in finance. We've been seeing each other for about 6 months now. My wife has no clue. Honestly, it's been good for me. Jennifer understands my world and ambitions. She's on her own path too. We talk strategy, make plans. It's refreshing compared to coming home to someone who can't discuss anything beyond what's for dinner." I sat frozen. My face was like stone. Inside, I was breaking apart, shattering silently into countless pieces. But years of mastering the art of being small, quiet, and agreeable kept me planted in my seat, forced the smile to stay in place, stopped my hands from trembling. An affair, secret offshore funds, belittling me as too simple for his world, calling my career a mere hobby, reducing me to a decorative figure who kept house and looked good. That's how 12 years of marriage boiled down to his view of me. This was his true opinion when he believed I couldn't understand. Tanaka-san was clearly uneasy now. I could see it in his restless shifting, his effort to steer the conversation back to neutral business topics. Too polite to call David out directly, his answers became clipped and formal. The dinner concluded. We exchanged farewells in the lobby. Tanaka-san bowed to me and carefully said in English, "It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Sarah. I wish you well." There was a softness in his eyes, something that made me wonder if he grasped more than he showed, if David's words had unsettled him as deeply as they did me. The ride home was silent. David seemed self-satisfied, humming along to the radio. "That went well," he said. "I think we're going to seal this deal." Tanaka looked impressed. That's wonderful, I replied, my voice hollow to my own ears. At home, David absent-mindedly kissed my cheek, mentioned needing to catch up on emails, and vanished into his office. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, closed the door, and stood in the quiet. Then I did something I never imagined I would. I called Emma. Emma had been my college roommate, my closest friend before distance, and David's subtle discouragement of my friendships drove us apart. She became a family law attorney and went through her own divorce 5 years ago. We reconnected recently through social media, exchanged some messages, but I hadn't confided anything real about my life. "Sarah," she answered on the second ring, surprise in her voice. It was nearly 11 p.m. "Is everything okay?" "I need help," I said, my voice breaking on the last word. "I need a lawyer." We talked for 2 hours. I spilled everything. The dinner, the Japanese conversation, the offshore accounts, the affair, years of feeling belittled and ignored. She listened without interruption, her legal mind clearly sorting through what I told her. "First," she said when I finished, "take a breath." "Can you do that for me?" I breathed. "Second, realize what he's doing with those offshore accounts might be illegal, definitely unethical. If he's hiding marital assets expecting a divorce or just to keep control, that's financial fraud." "We can use that." "I don't have proof," I said. "It was just talk. Did you record the dinner?" "No," I admitted, feeling foolish. "I wasn't thinking, I was just trying to process." "That's okay. Here's the plan. Do not confront him yet." "I know you want to, but we need strategy." "Starting tomorrow, gather documents, bank statements, tax returns, any financial records you can get. Take photos, forward emails, anything. If he's moving money, there will be a paper trail. We'll find it." "Emma, I'm scared." "I know, honey. But you're smart and capable. You just proved that by learning an entire language without him knowing. You can do this. You're not alone anymore." After hanging up, I sat on the bed's edge and let all the emotions I'd suppressed at the restaurant flood out. Rage, betrayal, grief, fear. Yet beneath it all, a new feeling took root. A cold, clear resolve. I would no longer be the ornamental wife, dismissed, diminished, and cheated on. I would reclaim control of my life, even if it meant burning down everything I'd built. The next day, I called in sick to work. David barely noticed, merely grunting as he left for the office. Once his car was gone, I began searching. His home office was neat and organized. I uncovered bank statements from the last 3 years, tax returns, investment account details. I photographed everything and uploaded it to a private cloud Emma set up for me. There it was, 2 accounts I'd never known about, both showing regular transfers. $50,000 moved over 8 months to a Cayman Islands bank. Our joint savings had been quietly drained without my knowledge. I felt ill but kept photographing, documenting thoroughly as Emma had instructed. I discovered emails too, printed and filed away, correspondence about investment properties I didn't know we owned, or rather, that he owned alone. Everything was in his name. Then I found emails with Jennifer. He'd been careless, printing some exchanges, maybe to keep track of figures or dates. But the content was damning. Romantic, sexual, discussing plans for a future clearly without me. One email read, "Once I've handled the Sarah situation, we can stop hiding." The Sarah situation. That's what I'd become, a problem to manage. For 6 weeks, I quietly gathered evidence while living with a man I finally saw clearly. Every smile was false. Every casual touch made my skin crawl, but I played my part. I cooked dinner, asked about his day, acted as if nothing had shifted. Emma was building the case. Twice a week, I met her at her office, bringing new documents and discussing how to proceed. We planned to file for divorce and simultaneously report his financial misconduct to his company's ethics board. The offshore accounts violated company policy, she discovered. He risked losing not just our marriage, but his career. Are you sure you want to go this far? Emma asked during one meeting. The company case will be nuclear. He'll lose everything. He was already planning to leave me with nothing, I said. He said so himself. He's been preparing for this. I'm just moving first. We chose a Friday. Emma filed the divorce papers Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, I dressed for work as usual, but went to Emma's office instead of mine. At 9 a.m., David's HR department received our evidence. At 9:30, the divorce papers were served to him at work. I sat in Emma's conference room with coffee I couldn't taste, watching the clock. My phone was off. I didn't want to see his calls or texts when he realized what was happening. At 11, Emma got confirmation. Papers served, evidence delivered. David's employer immediately placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. How do you feel? Emma asked. Terrified, I admitted, but also justified. I stayed at Emma's that night. She had a guest room and had already told me I could stay as long as I needed. She helped me draft emails to my employer, explaining I'd be taking FMLA leave for personal reasons. We ordered takeout and opened a bottle of wine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. David called 47 times that first day, leaving voicemails that shifted from confused to angry to pleading. I didn't listen to any of them. Emma did, though, documenting every message for the case. On Saturday, escorted by Emma and a police officer who was there just as a precaution, I returned to the house to gather my belongings. David was there, looking terrible, unshaven, rumpled, eyes red. Sarah, please, he started when he saw me. I raised my hand. Just let me explain. Explain what? That you've been cheating on me, that you've been hiding money, that you told me I was too simple to understand your world. I heard every word at that dinner, David. Every single word. His face went white. You don't speak Japanese. I've been fluent for over a year. Funny how you never asked. Never wondered what I did with my time when you were busy with work or Jennifer. He sank onto the couch. The company put me on leave. They're investigating. Sarah, I could lose my job. That's not my problem anymore. I started walking toward the stairs to our bedroom where I needed to pack. Wait, his voice was desperate. We can fix this. Couples therapy. I'll end things with Jennifer. We can work through this. I turned back to look at him, really look at him. This man I'd spent 12 years with, who I'd loved, who I'd believed loved me. You don't want to fix this. You want to fix your career, your image, your financial situation. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you got caught. That's not true. At that dinner, you told Tanaka-san I was just for appearance. That I was too simple, too unambitious. That I was essentially a live-in housekeeper who looked good at events. Do you even remember saying that? His silence was answer enough. I'm done being small for you, David. Done being the convenient wife who doesn't demand too much. File your counter motions if you want. Fight the divorce. But you're not going to win. And you're not getting away with hiding our assets. I spent 2 hours packing. He didn't try to stop me again, just sat on the couch, staring at nothing. The divorce took 8 months. California law required a 6-month waiting period after filing, and we spent those months negotiating the settlement. David's company investigation found sufficient evidence of ethical violations. They terminated him. He eventually found another job, but at a lower level and lower pay. The offshore accounts had to be disclosed and divided. The properties I didn't know about became part of the marital assets. In the end, I walked away with half of everything he'd tried to hide, plus spousal support for 3 years while I rebuilt my career. But the best part, the thing I never saw coming, happened about 2 months into the divorce process. Tanaka-san reached out through LinkedIn. His message was brief but warm. He'd heard about the divorce and wondered if I might be interested in a position with his company. They were opening a U.S. office and needed someone who understood both American marketing and Japanese business culture. Your unique skill set, he wrote, would be invaluable. I met with him and his team. This time, I spoke Japanese from the first moment. His eyes lit up with genuine respect and something else, maybe a little amusement that I'd fooled everyone at that dinner. I knew, he said in Japanese at the end of my interview. At the restaurant, the way you held yourself when David spoke about you. I saw the understanding in your eyes, just for a moment. I am glad you found your strength. They offered me the position of senior marketing director, with a salary triple what I'd been making. I accepted. I'm 63 now. That all happened over 20 years ago, but I remember every detail. The divorce, as painful as it was, gave me my life back. I ran that marketing department for 15 years, before retiring. I traveled to Japan a dozen times, made genuine friends, became someone who existed beyond being somebody's wife. I never remarried, dated occasionally, had one serious relationship that lasted 5 years before we parted amicably. But I never again made my world small to fit someone else's vision of who I should be. David sent me an email once, about 3 years after the divorce was final. He'd remarried, apologized for how things ended, and said he hoped I was well. I never responded. Some chapters don't need a closing. I still study Japanese, though now purely for pleasure. I read novels, watch films, sometimes tutor young professionals who want to learn. The language that started as a secret escape became the thing that saved me, showing I was capable of more than I'd allowed myself to believe. That dinner at Hashiri was the worst and best night of my life. Worst because I heard truths that shattered my reality. Best because it finally pushed me to act, to stop accepting less than I deserved. So if you're listening to this and you're in a marriage where you feel invisible, where your interests are dismissed, where you're made to feel small, pay attention to that feeling. Learn the language, gather the evidence, find your Emma. And when you're ready, take back your life. It won't be easy. It will hurt. There will be nights when you question everything. But on the other side of that pain is a life where you get to be fully yourself, where your voice matters, where you're not just decorative but essential. And that life is worth fighting for.